TV star now. One of the programmes that he gets on TV with is Tony Robinson from Blackadder and Time Team. He did a walking programme and he was walking between Liverpool and Wigan, and he asked for a horse-drawn boat in that section. And horse-drawn boats are incredibly rare now, very, very, very rare. So they got in touch with the Horse Boating Society and I said, I'm sorry, there is no horse-drawn boat over there. And then normally if I try to persuade them, a TV company, to come to us, they won't, because they'll say, no, our programme's not about, you know, the area you're trying to get us to come into. But I did my very, very best, and what I said was, I said, well, if you'd come to the other end of the canal, don't forget the Leeds to Liverpool canal is the longest one in Britain, 127 miles, so you wouldn't mind just coming another 100 miles in our direction, you can meet the very horse and the very boat that went from Leeds to Liverpool horse-drawn in 2012, the first time it had been done with a horse-drawn boat in over 60 years. And luckily that sold it to them. So they came specially to meet Bilbo, and when Tony Robinson did meet him, he's called Bilbo Baggins from the story The Hobbit. He said, this is no hobbit, no little creature, this is a giant, a gentle giant. But he's not a gentle giant at all. He's just a medium-sized horse. So I'll go and collect him in a second and you can meet him properly. But he's just busy eating at the moment. So I'll tell you a little bit about him before we bring him up, and I'll explain to you what we're going to do. Now, as I say, he has genuinely pulled that boat from Leeds to Liverpool, 127 miles. He's been on many other canals and done many other journeys and pulled other boats as well. We would love, given that the boat has been kept here since the winter of 2011, we would like nothing more than to come from Leeds to here horse-drawn, but we can't. If you look at the towing path, there's no problem with the towing path at all, it's absolutely fine. What the problem is, it's all the trees that have been allowed to grow. So there are two problems going on here. One is that the trees should never have been allowed to grow, because no towing path ever had trees in the way of the towing line. So they should never ever been allowed to grow. And as you can see, the trunks on some of them are getting quite substantial. And once they become a little bit mature like that, then people start getting all emotional. Oh, you can't cut the tree down, but they should never have been allowed to grow. I mean, you know, they start off just the thickness of somebody's thumb, and if you take them down every year, they never would have got established. The other problem is that British Waterways in 2006 came out with what they call their veg pledge, which they promised that every single towing path, which was in their ownership, the trees would be cut down a minimum of once a year. Well, they've never come and done here once since 2006, and part of the reason is they are not treating this as a canal, but it doesn't make any difference. What they said was all of their towing paths, whether it was on a canal, a river, a navigation, all of them would be done, but they haven't fulfilled their promise. So these have just grown taller and taller and taller and thicker and thicker. The smallest ones, that would be difficult because it's hawthorn, so our towing line would get snagged into it if we tried to lift it over. But the ash over there, we could with difficulty lift over it. But you can see the, I'm not sure, I can't see from here, it might be a sycamore. There's absolutely no way whatsoever we can get our towing line over these trees. There's just huge, dense, mature trees ahead of us. So we cannot go horse boating on the Aire Calder, but we were able to go from Leeds to Liverpool. There were quite a lot of trees down there, and I campaigned and they were cut down for us. And basically the Horse Boating Society has caused a very good clearing up job to happen on many canals, because they are being put into the order that they should be. Okay, would you like to bring him up, Nigel? I've got the rope here. So when we go to many waterway events, in actual fact there may be so many boats have come to gather at the event that we may not be able to operate a horse-drawn boat because all the more boats have been in the way of our towing line. But in this instance, should we have wanted to do, we could have demonstrated it beautifully. There are no boats in the way on the towing path side, and it's the trees that are preventing us. But so what we're going to do today is we're going to harness him up, show you what harness he wears in order to be able to pull a boat and explain how it all works. But unfortunately there won't be a horse boating demonstration. To quickly tell you, before I start with the horse, a bit about the boat. The boat below is his boat, very, very special. One of not the oldest, but one of Britain's oldest canal boats. 150 years old this year, built in Leeds in 1865. Never had an engine, was built to be pulled by horse. So we're hoping to celebrate her 150th anniversary later this year, and you can get a better view of her cabin. Like, you know, if you go along the fencing over there, you'll be able to sort of view the colourful painting and the decorative work on her cabin roof today. But let's talk about the horse and get him harnessed up, and then we can go back to talking about the boat again. His name, Bilbo Baggins. Breeding, very, very mixed, fairly irrelevant. I bred him myself. I owned his grandmother, his mother and his father, but given that we never knew how most of them were bred, all we can say really is he's got very mixed breeding. The only bit I can guarantee, he's definitely quarter Frisian, which is a Dutch harness, of course. Probably quarter Clydesdale from his grandmother, but we don't actually know the breeding. As a type, he's a cob, which is the maximum height for a cob, 15 one hands high. How we measure a horse, we go from the ground, but not to the top of the head, because they have this neck that they can move and put right down there. So we go to this fixed point here, called the withers. It's the highest point when his head is down. So we measure from the ground to that point, and we put it to man's hands, a little bit bigger than mine, so 4 inches. So it's one hand upon the other from the ground up to that fixed point. So at 15 one hands high, 15 hands with 4 inches in each hand, that's 60 inches. So he's 5 foot 1 inch up to that particular point. And that's the biggest height you can have for a cob. A slightly bigger type of boat horse we call a vanner, and they are a bit taller. So he is a very, very, very typical type of horse for pulling a narrowboat, hence our boat down there, the narrowboat. This boat, these type of boats carried anything from 15 to 25 tons when horse drawn, whereas the wide beam boats, when horse drawn, carried anything from 30 to 80 tons, depending upon exactly what their dimensions were, how wide they were and how long they were. So he is not, this horse would not have been pulling a loaded wide beam boat and born empty, but he would have been pulling a loaded narrowboat with perhaps 20 to 25 tons on. Okay, in order to be able to do that work, he needs harness on. So if I take him, would you like to get his collar, Nigel? Come on, Bilbo. So here he is, Bilbo Baggins. Good boy. And the first item of harness he's going to have put on him is a collar. And the purpose of the collar is so that we can then attach metalwork, chains and hooks and ropes and all sorts of things, so that he can pull a boat. But he's made of flesh and blood like you and me. The first thing we're going to do is make him very cosy and comfortable with a very big padded collar on him, so that he's comfortable when he's working. Hello, this is Bilbo.